Katie Miller pressed her face against the small window of the transport ship and watched the biggest building she had ever seen grow larger and larger. The Kepler Interstellar Academy looked like a giant crystal flower floating in space. Towers twisted up and around each other, glowing with soft blue and green lights. Katie had seen pictures, but seeing it in person made her stomach flip with excitement and fear. "First time off Earth?" asked the pilot, a friendly creature that looked like a walking stick with too many arms. His name was something Katie could not say right, so he told her to call him Pete. "Yes, sir," Katie said, still staring out the window. "I can't believe I'm really here." Pete made a sound that might have been laughing. "You humans are funny. Most species send their best and brightest to the academy. You people send farm girls from Montana." Katie felt her cheeks get warm. She was from a farm in Montana, and she knew she was not the smartest human alive. But she had scored well on the tests, and somehow the academy had picked her. Out of all the humans on Earth, they wanted her. She still could not understand why. The transport ship slid into a docking bay that was bigger than her entire hometown. Katie grabbed her 2 bags and followed Pete through a tube that connected the ship to the academy. The tube was clear, and she could see stars all around her. It made her feel dizzy. "Don't look down," Pete said, with what sounded like amusement. "There is no down in space, but your brain does not know that yet." They walked through doors that opened by themselves and into a hall that took Katie's breath away. The ceiling was so high she could not see the top. Plants from different worlds grew along the walls, some glowing, some moving like they were dancing. Students walked, flew, and slithered past her in every direction. Katie had never seen so many different kinds of beings in one place. A small creature that looked like a glowing butterfly the size of a house cat flew up to them. It had tiny arms and legs, and the biggest eyes Katie had ever seen. "Hello, hello, hello," it said in a voice like wind chimes. "I am Pip. I am here to help new students. Are you the human? The real live human from the Deathworld?" "I'm Katie," she said, trying not to stare at Pip's wings. "And Earth is not really a death world. I mean, it's dangerous, but people live there just fine." Pip flew in a circle around Katie's head. "Amazing. You're so big, and you have only 2 eyes. How do you see behind you?" "I turn around," Katie said. "Turn around. What a clever solution." Pip clapped her tiny hands. "Come, come, come." "I will. Show you to your room. Your roommate is already here." They walked through more halls that seemed to go on forever. Katie saw classrooms with students sitting in pools of water, others hanging from the ceiling like bats, and one room where everyone seemed to be floating in the air. She tried not to bump into anyone, but it was hard. She felt like a giant compared to most of the other students. "Here we are," Pip said, stopping in front of a door that had Katie's name on it in letters she could read. "Your room. Your roommate is very nice. His name is Alex Johnson, and he is also human." Katie felt relief wash over her. At least she would have one person to talk to who understood where she came from. She pressed her hand to the door scanner, and it slid open. Inside was a room with 2 beds, 2 desks, and a big window looking out at the stars. A young man with dark hair and glasses looked up from his desk where he was reading something on a screen. "You must be Katie," he said, standing up. "I'm Alex. I've been here for 2 weeks already." "Welcome to the strangest place in the galaxy." Katie dropped her bags and shook his hand. His grip was firm but gentle, the way her father had taught her. To shake hands? It felt good to touch another human. "Is it always this crazy?" she asked, nodding toward the door where the sounds of different alien voices filled the hall. "Pretty much," Alex said with a grin. "Wait until you see the dining hall. There are creatures there that eat rocks, others that drink liquid light, and some that seem to live on pure mathematics. The food dispenser took me 3 days to figure out." Pip flew into the room and landed on Katie's desk. "Alex is a very good student. He studies engineering. Very smart for a human." "Thanks, I think," Alex said. He looked at Katie. "What are you studying?" "General studies," Katie said, feeling embarrassed. "They said I need to take basic classes first to see what I'm good at." Alex nodded. "Same here. I think we're all barbarians who just learned to use fire last week. I have a degree in mechanical engineering from MIT. but they put me in Introduction to Simple Machines with a bunch of 6-year-olds from Centauri Prime. Are the teachers nice? Katie asked. Alex's face changed. Most of them are okay. They treat us like we're slow children, but they're not mean about it. Except for Professor Zexthal. He teaches fundamental forces and biological limitations. He seems to think humans are a mistake that evolution made, and wants to prove it to everyone. What do you mean? Katie asked. Uses humans as examples of everything wrong with evolution. Too big, too clumsy, too violent, too stupid. He's made 3 human students drop out in the past 5 years. I think he's trying to get rid of all of us. Pitt made a sad whistling sound. Professor Zexthal is very smart, but he is not very nice. He thinks small, delicate species are better than big, strong ones. He says strength is for animals, not for thinking beings. Katie sat down on her bed and looked out the window at the stars. Back home on the farm, she was considered small and weak. Her brothers were all bigger and stronger than her. Her father could lift a full-grown cow if he needed to. Her mother could work 16-hour days in the fields without getting tired. Katie had always felt like the weakest person in her. Family, how bad is he really? She asked. Alex sat down at his desk and pulled up something on his screen. See for yourself. This is from his last lecture. The screen showed a tall, thin alien with pale skin and long fingers. He moved like he was made of glass and might break if he moved too fast. His voice was soft and high. The species from what they call Deathworlds are tragic examples of evolution gone wrong, the professor was saying. They develop crude strength because their planets try to kill them every day. But strength without intelligence is just brutality. They are like weapons that learn to think, but not very well. Katie felt something cold settle in her stomach. This was going to be harder than she thought. Don't let him get to you, Alex said, seeing her face. We know what we are. We know what humans can do. Let him think what he wants. But as Katie unpacked her things and got ready for her first day of classes, she wondered if maybe the professor was right. Maybe humans really were just animals pretending to be smart. Maybe she did not belong here after all. Outside their window, the academy's lights twinkled like stars, and somewhere in those halls, Professor Zexthal was preparing for another day of proving that humans were failures. Katie had no idea that in a few weeks, she would accidentally prove him both completely wrong and completely right in ways that would change how the entire galaxy thought about Earth and everyone who lived there. Katie's first week at the academy was like learning to breathe underwater. Everything was strange and new, and she felt like she was always one step behind everyone else. The other students seemed to know things she had never heard of. They talked about concepts that made her head spin and used words that were not in any dictionary she knew. Her first class was basic mathematics for sentient beings with Professor Quillix. A round, purple creature who looked like a friendly balloon with arms. Katie thought she was good at math. But the problems they worked on involved numbers that had colors and equations that moved around the screen like living things. Miss Miller, Professor Quillix said, in a voice like bubbles popping, "Could you solve this simple addition problem?" Katie looked at the screen. The numbers were dancing and changing colors. She had no idea what they meant. "I'm sorry, Professor. I don't understand what the colors mean." The class made soft sounds that might have been laughter. Professor Quillix looked surprised. "Oh my, I forgot. Humans only see in 3 dimensions. How limiting. Please, just solve the parts you can see." Felt her face get hot. She managed to solve the basic numbers, but she knew she was missing most of the problem. After class, a student who looked like a walking crystal came up to her. "Don't feel bad," the crystal student said. "I'm Zara. I'm from Prism 7. We see in 7 dimensions, so math is easy for us. But you did better than I did in my first human history class. I thought your World War II was a board game." Katie laughed despite feeling embarrassed. "Thanks. I guess we all have things we're good at and things we're not." But her hardest class was the one she had been dreading. Fundamental forces and biological limitations with Professor Zexthal. The classroom was long and narrow, with seats that looked like they were made for beings much smaller than humans. Katie had to squeeze into her chair, and her knees pressed against the desk in front of her. Professor Zexthal entered the room like he was floating on air. He was even taller than he looked in the videos. with skin so pale it was almost white and fingers that were twice as long as human fingers. His eyes were large and silver, and when he looked at Katie, she felt like he was looking at something dirty. "Today we will discuss the tragedy of biological waste," he said in his soft, high voice. "Some species evolve efficiency, others evolve brute force. The difference tells us much about the intelligence of evolution itself." He moved to the front of the class, his movements smooth and graceful. "Consider the Velthari, my own species. We are tall, yes, but we are light. Our bones are hollow like birds. Our muscles are precise, using only the energy needed for each task. We have evolved beyond the need for crude strength." Katie shifted in her seat, which made a small squeaking sound. Professor Zextel's eyes snapped to her. "Ah, Miss Miller, our resident example of evolutionary inefficiency. Please, stand up." Katie felt every eye in the room turn to her. Slowly she stood up. At her full height, she was taller than most of the other students. Her shoulders were broader than Professor Zextel's entire body. "Notice the crude construction," Professor Zextel said, walking around her like she was a museum display. "Heavy bones, thick muscles, dense tissue. This is what happens when a planet tries to kill its inhabitants every day. They become walking armor, but at what cost?" He gestured to her arms. "Those muscles require enormous amounts of energy to maintain. The brain must work constantly just to control such a clumsy system. It is like trying to perform surgery with a sledgehammer." Katie felt her face burning, but she stayed quiet. Had warned her that fighting back would only make things worse. "Miss Miller," Professor Zextel continued, "can you tell the class how much food you consume in a day?" I don't know exactly," Katie said. "I eat when I'm hungry." "Exactly. Eat without thinking, like an animal. A Velthari, such as myself, requires 1/10 the nutrition you do, leaving more brain power for higher thinking. This is why Deathworld species remain primitive. They spend all their energy just staying alive." A small student near the front raised a tentacle. "But Professor, don't humans have art and music and literature? My friend showed me something called Shakespeare that was quite beautiful." Professor Zextel made a dismissive gesture. "Crude, emotional expressions. True intelligence creates perfect mathematical poetry, not the random noise that humans call music. Miss Miller, please demonstrate your species' idea of art by reciting something." Katie's mind went blank. She could think of 1,000 poems and songs. Standing there with everyone staring at her, she could not remember a single word. I can't think of anything right now," she said quietly. "Of course you can't." The Deathworld brain shuts down under pressure because it must save energy for physical survival. "Sit down, Miss Miller. You've proven my point perfectly." Katie sat down, her face hot with shame. The rest of the class, Professor Zextel, used her as an example again and again. Her hands were too big for delicate work. Reflexes were too slow for precise tasks. Her brain was too focused on physical survival to handle complex thinking. After class, Katie walked slowly back to her room. Legs felt heavy, and her chest felt tight. Maybe the professor was right. Maybe she was just a big, clumsy animal pretending to be smart. Alex was waiting for her with Pip. Was flying worried circles around the room. "That bad?" Alex asked, seeing her face. "Worse," Katie said. "What?" She sat down on her bed and told them. Everything that had happened, Pip made angry buzzing sounds. "Professor Zextel is wrong, wrong, wrong. Humans are not animals. You are kind and smart, and you help me with my math homework." "He's been doing this for years," Alex said. "He made Lisa Rodriguez cry so hard she transferred to a different academy. He told Marcus Williams that humans were evolution's mistake until Marcus punched a wall and broke his hand." "Maybe he's right," Katie said. "Maybe I don't belong here." "Don't say that," Alex said firmly. "You know what you are, Katie? You know what humans can do? My grandfather fought in 3 wars and came home to build a farm with his bare hands. My mom worked 2 jobs while getting her doctorate in physics. Your family has been farming the same land for 4 generations, right? That takes intelligence, planning, and strength. But I can't even remember a poem when someone asks me to," Katie said. "So what? I bet Professor Zextel couldn't milk a cow or fix a tractor or work a 16-hour day in the fields. Different kinds of intelligence, Katie. Different kinds of strength. Pip landed on Katie's shoulder. Alex is right. You are strong in ways Professor Zextel does not understand. He thinks being delicate makes him better, but I have seen you be gentle with small things. You are strong enough to be gentle. That is very rare. Katie looked out the window at the stars. Back home, she had never thought about being strong or gentle. She just was what she was. She helped her father with the heavy lifting, her mother with the careful work, and her brothers with whatever needed doing. She had never thought of herself as special in any way. Tomorrow is another class, she said. And he'll probably pick on you again, Alex said. But you know what? Let him. Every time he uses you as an example of what's wrong with humans, you. Just remember what's right with us. We're tough enough to survive anything, smart enough to build civilizations, crazy enough to leave our home planet to learn from aliens who think we're idiots. Katie smiled for the first time since class ended. When you put it that way, it sounds pretty good. It is pretty good, Alex said. Professor Zextel just doesn't know it yet. None of them knew that in just a few days, Professor Zextel would learn exactly how wrong he was about humans, and Katie would accidentally become the most famous human in the galaxy. 3 weeks had passed since Katie's first day in Professor Zextel's class, and things had only gotten worse. Every day he found new ways to use her as an example of everything wrong with Deathworld evolution. He made her try to hold delicate instruments with her clumsy hands. He asked her impossible questions about advanced physics and then shook his head sadly when she could not answer. He assigned her extra homework that seemed designed to prove she was too stupid to understand. Basic concepts Katie had stopped raising her hand in class. She sat in the back row, tried to make herself as small as possible, and hoped he would not notice her. But Professor Zextel always noticed her. She was the biggest thing in the room, and he seemed to enjoy pointing that out. Today, Professor, Zextel announced, as he glided into the classroom, we will discuss the practical applications of force measurement. It is crucial that all intelligent beings understand their own limitations to avoid damaging delicate equipment or injuring more fragile species. He moved to his desk and picked up a small, crystal-like device that glowed with soft blue light. This is a standard force measurement tool. It can detect even the slightest pressure and will break if subjected to more than 50 newtons of force. For reference, that is roughly the pressure of a feather falling on your hand. Katie watched from her seat in the back as Professor Zextel demonstrated the proper way to hold the device. His long, thin fingers barely touched it, and it responded by glowing brighter. Now, he said, his silver eyes scanning the room, I need a volunteer to demonstrate the importance of restraint when handling sensitive equipment. Every student in the class suddenly became very interested in their desks. No one wanted to be the one to accidentally break the expensive-looking device. Miss Miller, Professor Zextel said, and Katie felt her heart sink. Please come to the front of the class. Katie stood up slowly, her chair squeaking against the floor. She walked to the front of the room, aware that every eye was on her. She had grown used to the feeling over the past few weeks, but it still made her nervous. Now, Miss Miller, Professor Zextel said, holding up the device, I want you to demonstrate for the class why Deathworld species cannot be trusted with delicate instruments. Katie stared at the glowing crystal. It looked fragile, like it might break if she breathed on it too hard. I don't think I should touch that, Professor. You said it breaks easily. Exactly my point, Professor Zextel said with what might have been a smile. You already know you will break it. Your species has no concept of gentle handling, but surely you can at least try. Or are you admitting that humans are too primitive to handle basic scientific equipment? Katie felt trapped. If she refused, he would say she was too scared to try. If she agreed, she would probably break the device and prove his point. Either way, she would look stupid in front of the whole class. I'll try, she said quietly. Professor Zextel's smile grew wider. Excellent, please, take a seat at my desk. I will hand you the device, and you will attempt to hold it without destroying it. Class, please observe how a Deathworld species approaches delicate work. Katie sat down in the professor's chair, which was too small for her. Her knees pressed against the underside of the desk, and she had to hunch her shoulders to fit. "Professor?" Zexthal stood beside her, holding the glowing device. "Now, Miss Miller," he said, "I want you to show the class how humans handle scientific instruments. Take the device and try not to break it immediately." Katie reached out very slowly and carefully took the device from his hands. It was lighter than she expected, almost weightless. She held it like it was made of soap bubbles, barely touching it with her fingertips. The device glowed softly in her hands, and for a moment, Katie felt a small spark of hope. Maybe she could do this. Maybe she could prove that humans were not as clumsy as he thought. "Very good," Professor Zexthal said. "Now, Miss Miller, I want you to demonstrate proper measurement technique. Please squeeze the device gently to activate its sensors." Katie looked at the device in her hands. Squeeze it? It just said it would break if she used more than 50 newtons of force. She had no idea how much force that was, but it sounded like almost nothing. "I don't think I should squeeze it," Katie said. "You said it breaks easily. Are you refusing to follow instructions?" Professor Zexthal asked, his voice getting sharper. "This is a simple request. Any intelligent being should be able to apply gentle pressure without breaking the device. Unless, of course, you are admitting that humans lack the basic motor control necessary for scientific work." Katie felt her face getting hot. She looked at the device in her hands, then at Professor Zexthal, then at the class full of students watching her. She was tired of being the example of everything wrong with her species. She was tired of being treated like an animal. She was tired of being afraid. "Fine," she said. "I'll squeeze it." She applied what she thought was the gentlest pressure possible. The device cracked in half immediately. The class gasped. Professor Zexthal stepped back with an expression of mock surprise and disappointment. "And there we have it," he said to the class. "A perfect demonstration of why Deathworld species cannot be trusted with delicate work. Miss Miller has just destroyed a device worth more than most species make in a year, simply because she cannot control her primitive strength." Katie stared at the broken pieces in her hands. She had barely touched it. She had been as gentle as she knew how to be. But it had broken anyway, just like Professor Zexthal knew it would. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to break it." "Of course you didn't mean to," Professor Zexthal said. "That is precisely the problem. Deathworld species cannot help but destroy things. It is in your nature. You're like a bull in a china shop, as your own people say." Katie started to stand up, but Professor Zexthal put his hand on her shoulder. To stop her. "We are not finished with our demonstration," he said. "Since you have proven that you cannot handle delicate equipment, let me show the class the proper technique." He reached for her wrist, intending to position her hand to show the correct way to hold something fragile. His fingers wrapped around her wrist, and he began to pull her arm up to demonstrate. Katie's reaction was completely instinctive. She had been grabbed unexpectedly, and her body responded the way it had been trained to respond since she was a child on a farm where large animals could hurt you if you were not careful. Without thinking, without even looking at what she was doing, she twisted her wrist in a simple, basic motion to free herself from his grip. The sound of Professor Zexthal's arm breaking was like a branch snapping in a strong wind. It echoed through the silent classroom, followed immediately by the professor's scream of pain and shock. Professor Zexthal collapsed to the floor. His arm bent at an angle that arms were not supposed to bend. His pale skin had gone even whiter, and his silver eyes were wide with pain and disbelief. Katie looked down at him, still holding the broken pieces of the device. The classroom was completely silent, except for Professor Zexthal's gasping breaths. "Oh," Katie said, as if she had just noticed she had dropped her pencil. "Sorry about that." She had not even stood up from the chair. The silence in the classroom stretched on for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Professor Zexthal lay on the floor, making small whimpering sounds as he held his broken arm against his chest. The other students stared at Katie, like she had just turned into a monster before their eyes. Katie looked down at the professor, then at her own hand, then back at the professor. She had no idea what had just happened. One moment he was grabbing her wrist, and the next moment he was on the floor with his arm broken. She had barely felt any resistance when she twisted her wrist free. "Should I call for help?" asked Zara. The crystal student, her voice shaking. "Yes," Katie said, finally standing up from the chair. "Call medical, right now." The next few minutes were chaos. Medical teams rushed into the classroom with floating stretchers and devices that Katie had never seen before. They carefully lifted Professor Zexel onto the stretcher while scanning his broken arm with instruments that beeped and flashed. "Compound fracture in 2 places," one of the medical technicians said to another. "Severe trauma to the joint. He'll need bone regeneration therapy for at least 3 months." Dean Vortex arrived just as they were taking Professor Zextal away. The Dean was a tall blue creature with 4 arms and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. She looked at the broken device on the desk, at the empty stretcher tracks, on the floor, and finally at Katie. "Miss Miller," Dean Vortex said in a voice like distant thunder, "please come with me now." Katie followed the Dean through the halls of the academy, aware that every student they passed stopped to stare at. Her word traveled fast in a place like this, and she was sure everyone already knew what had happened. She was the human who had attacked a professor. She was the monster from the Deathworld who had finally shown her true nature. Dean Vortex's office was huge, with windows that looked out at the stars and walls covered with certificates and awards from hundreds of different worlds. The Dean sat behind a desk that could have held a small aircraft and gestured for Katie to sit in a chair that was, for once, actually big enough for her. "Tell me exactly what happened," Dean Vortex said. Katie told her everything, how Professor Zextal had made her try to hold the device, how she had broken it despite trying to be gentle. He had grabbed her wrist to demonstrate something, how she had twisted free without thinking about it. "I didn't mean to hurt him," Katie said when she finished. "I didn't even know I was doing anything wrong. He grabbed me, and I just—" Dean Vortex was quiet for a long time, her 4 hands folded on the desk in front of her. "Miss Miller, do you understand how much force it takes to break a Velthari arm?" "No, ma'am," Katie said. "A Velthari skeleton is designed for efficiency, not strength. Their bones are hollow like birds on your world. It would take approximately 200 newtons of rotational force to break Professor Zextal's arm in the manner you did." Katie stared at her. "I don't know what that means." "It means," Dean Vortex said, "that what you did without thinking, without effort, would be impossible for most students in this academy to do on purpose, even if they were trying to hurt someone." Katie felt sick. "Am I going to be expelled?" "That depends," Dean Vortex said. "I have reviewed the security footage of the incident. I can see clearly that Professor Zextal grabbed you first, and your response was immediate and reflexive. But I need to understand what we are dealing with here, Miss Miller. I'm going to ask Dr. Maya Patel to run some tests on you. Will you agree to this?" "What kind of tests?" Katie asked. "Physical assessments. We need to understand human capabilities better if we are going to keep you and your fellow humans safe and keep the rest of our students safe as well." 3 hours later, Katie found herself in the Academy's medical center, sitting on an examination table that groaned under her weight. Dr. Maya Patel was a kind-looking woman with brown skin and gentle eyes who spoke with an accent that reminded Katie of her high school science teacher. "I want you to know that you are not in trouble," Dr. Patel said as she attached sensors to Katie's arms and hands. "But we need to understand what happened today. The preliminary tests I have run are ... quite surprising." "Surprising how?" Katie asked. "Let me show you," Dr. Patel said, pulling up a screen. "This is the force measurement from when you broke the crystal device. According to our sensors, you applied exactly 2.3 newtons of pressure. For comparison, that is less force than most species use to pick up a piece of paper." Katie stared at the screen, but it broke. Yes, it broke. Because the device was designed to break at 0.5 newtons. Professor Zextal lied to you. He told you it would break at 50 newtons, but it was actually designed to break at 1/100th of that force. There was no way for you to handle it without breaking it. Katie felt anger rise in her chest. "He set me up." "Yes, he did. But that is not the interesting part. The interesting part is that you applied less than half the force that most species would consider gentle handling. You're being far more careful than even you realize." Dr. Patel pulled up another screen. "Now this is the measurement from When you freed your wrist from Professor Zextel's grip, you applied 847 newtons of rotational force in 0.3 seconds. Is that a lot? Katie asked. Miss Miller, that is more force than our strongest security robots can generate. And you did it without thinking, without effort, and without even standing. Up from your chair, Katie felt the room spinning around her. I don't understand. Let me put this in perspective, Dr. Patel said gently. The average grip strength for species in this academy ranges from 50 to 200 newtons. Your casual grip strength, when you are trying to be gentle, measures 1,847 newtons. When I asked you to grip as hard as you comfortably could, you generated 4,293 newtons of force. But I'm not strong, Katie said. Back home, I'm one of the weaker people in my family. My dad can lift a whole cow. My brothers can work all day in the fields without getting tired. Dr. Patel was quiet for a moment. Ms. Miller, how much do you weigh? About 140 pounds. Why? That is approximately 63 kilograms. Professor Zextel weighs 31 kilograms. Could lift him over your head with one hand without straining yourself. Katie put her head in her hands. No wonder everyone is afraid of me. They are not afraid of you because you are dangerous, Dr. Patel said. They are afraid because they had no idea what you were capable of. And more importantly, you had no idea what you were capable of compared to other species. What does this mean? Katie asked. It means, Dr. Patel said, that every human who has ever attended this academy has been holding back more than we ever imagined. It means that what your species considers normal strength would be superhuman ability to most of the galaxy. And it means that we have been treating you like primitive brutes when you are actually showing incredible restraint every moment of every day. Dr. Patel pulled up one more screen. Miss Miller, according to these readings, if you sneezed with full force, you could knock most students in your class unconscious. If you clapped your hands with excitement, you could shatter windows. If you patted someone on the back in a friendly way, you could break their spine. Katie stared at the numbers on the screen. But I don't want to hurt anyone. I know you don't. And that is the most remarkable thing of all. Your entire species has evolved not just incredible physical capabilities, but also incredible control. You have learned to be gentle in a way that most species cannot even imagine. Now, Katie asked. Now, Dr. Patel said, we rewrite everything we thought we knew about humans, and we make sure that no professor ever tries to humiliate a student from a Deathworld again. Outside the medical center, news of the incident was spreading throughout the academy and beyond. For the first time in galactic history, people were beginning to understand what it really meant to be human. News of what happened in Professor Zextel's classroom spread through the academy faster than Katie could have imagined. By the next morning, students from every species were looking at her differently. Some seemed afraid, stepping out of her, way in the halls. Others looked at her with something that might have been respect. A few just stared like she was some kind of fascinating monster. Katie sat in the dining hall with Alex and Pip, picking at her breakfast. The food dispenser had taken her 3 tries to figure out, but she had finally managed to get something that looked like scrambled eggs and toast. Around them, conversations stopped when she walked by. This is weird, Katie said quietly. Everyone keeps staring at me. Can you blame them? Alex said. You accidentally broke a professor's arm without even trying. Half the academy thinks you're dangerous, and the other half thinks you're amazing. Pip flew in excited circles around Katie's head. You are famous. Everyone wants to know about the human who showed Professor Zextel that he was wrong. I didn't want to show him anything, Katie said. I just wanted him to leave me alone. Well, he's definitely going to leave you alone now, Alex said with a grin. I heard he's going to be in the medical center for months. Dean Vortex approached their table, her 4 arms carrying a stack of data pads. She sat down across from Katie, which made several nearby tables go quiet. Miss Miller, Dean Vortex said, Dr. Patel's test results have been quite enlightening. We need to discuss some changes to your education here. Katie felt her stomach drop. Are you expelling me? Quite the opposite, Dean Vortex said. You're moving you to advanced courses. Seems we have been greatly underestimating human intelligence, along with human physical capabilities. She slid a datapad across the table to Katie. These are your new class assignments. Advanced Physics with Dr. Chen. Interstellar Engineering with Professor Williams. Comparative Xenobiology with Dr. Rivera. And most importantly, a new course we are creating specifically for Deathworld species called Strength and Responsibility. Katie looked at the list. These all sound too hard for me, Miss Miller. Dean Vortex said. Yesterday you solved a quantum mechanics problem that Dr. Patel gave you as a distraction during your tests. You did it in your head while she was measuring your grip strength. Dr. Patel says you approached it in a way she had never seen before, but your answer was correct. I was just guessing, Katie said. No, you were thinking differently than other species think. Dr. Patel believes that Deathworld evolution creates not just physical strength, but mental resilience and creative problem-solving abilities that we have never properly recognized. Alex leaned forward. What about Professor Zexthal? Is he going to come after Katie when he gets better? Dean Vortex's expression darkened. Professor Zexthal will not be returning to his teaching position. The Academy Board has reviewed his methods and found them to be deliberately harmful to students. He will be reassigned to research duties where he will have no contact with students. Pip made happy chirping sounds. Good. It was mean to everyone, not just humans. Furthermore, Dean Vortex continued, we are implementing new safety protocols for all Deathworld species. All faculty will be educated about the strength differences between species, and no one will be allowed to physically grab or restrain a student without their explicit consent. Katie looked around the dining hall. Students were still watching her, but now she noticed something different in their expressions. They were not just afraid or curious. Some of them looked grateful. Dean Vortex, Katie said. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you let Professor Zexthal treat students so badly for so long? Dean Vortex was quiet for a moment. Because we did not understand what we were seeing. We thought Deathworld species were primitive and needed to be ... corrected. We thought Professor Zexthal was helping you overcome your natural limitations. We were wrong about everything. She stood up to leave, then paused. Miss Miller, there is one more thing. We have received requests from 17 different academies across the galaxy asking for copies of Dr. Patel's research on human capabilities. Your incident has started a galaxy-wide reassessment of Deathworld species. After Dean Vortex left, Katie sat quietly with her friends. The dining hall had returned to normal noise levels, but she could still feel eyes on her from time to time. So, what now? She asked. Now, you become the best student this academy has ever seen, Alex said. And you show everyone that humans are not just strong, but smart too. And you teach everyone to be nice to Deathworld students, Pip added. No more mean professors. 3 months later, Katie was sitting in her advanced physics class when her communication device buzzed with a video call from home. She stepped outside into the hall and accepted the call. Her mother's face appeared on the screen, smiling and covered in dirt from working in the garden. Hi, honey, her mother said. How are things at your fancy space school? Good, Mom, Katie said. Really good. I'm learning a lot. That's wonderful. Oh, your father wants to say hi, Danny. Come talk to your sister, her younger brother Danny. Appeared on the screen, grinning and missing one of his front teeth. Katie, did you really break an alien's arm, like the news said? Katie laughed. It was an accident, Danny. I just twisted my wrist when he grabbed me. Cool. Did you remember to use your inside voice and inside strength like Mom and Dad taught? Us. Katie paused. Inside voice and inside strength. Her parents had taught all their children from the time they could walk that they had to be careful around smaller, more fragile things. They had to speak quietly so they did not hurt people's ears. They had to move gently so they did not break things or hurt someone accidentally. She had thought it was just normal parenting, but now she understood it differently. Yeah, Danny, she said, I remembered. But I guess my inside strength is still pretty strong compared to everyone else here. That's okay, Danny said. Mom says we're strong so we can help people, not hurt them. You're helping people at space school, right? I'm trying to, Katie said. Good. Hey, guess what? Helped Dad fix the tractor yesterday. Held up the whole engine. while he worked on it. Dad says I'm getting as strong as you and Tommy. Katie smiled. That's great, Danny. Just remember what Mom and Dad taught us, okay? I know. Be gentle with everything except when someone needs help moving something heavy. After the call ended, Katie stood in the hall, thinking about her family back on Earth. Her little brother was already strong enough to lift a tractor engine, and he was only 12 years old. Her parents had taught all of them to control their strength from the time they were babies, not because they were training warriors, but because they were raising children who would live in a world full of fragile things. Dr. Rivera passed by in the hall and nodded to Katie. How are your studies going, Miss Miller? Very well, Professor, Katie said. I'm enjoying the xenobiology course. Excellent. Oh, I wanted to let you know we have 3 new Deathworld students arriving next semester. 2 humans and 1 from Kepler 4 for to be. Would you be willing to help orient them? Of course, Katie said. I'd be happy to help. Wonderful. I think having someone who understands their situation will make their transition much easier. As Dr. Rivera walked away, Katie realized that everything had changed. She was no longer the clumsy farm girl who did not belong at the academy. She was Katie Miller, the first human to show the galaxy what her species was really capable of. She was a student, a teacher, and a bridge between her world and the stars, and she had done it all by simply being herself, using her inside voice and inside strength, just like her parents had taught her. Back on Earth, her family continued their daily lives, never knowing that their daughter had accidentally changed how an entire galaxy thought about humanity. And in the halls of the Kepler Interstellar Academy, students from dozens of worlds walked a little more carefully, spoke a little more respectfully, and understood a little better that strength and gentleness could exist in the same person. Katie Miller had shown them all what it meant to be human.